this is it. This is like the pinnacle. Okay. Hi, I'm Amber, and today I'm very, very excited because, as I always am when I'm doing a video, but I'm extra excited today because I'm going to be doing the dissociation tag. So if you don't know, I have created the dissociation tag. It's been like my project for a while, and it's come to the time I'm ready, and I'm doing it myself, and I'm very, very excited to be kind of answering the questions. Got my grounding bag, got my little stone ready, because I know it's going to be hard to be talking about my dissociative experiences. But yeah, I'm just going to get straight into it. The first question: how do you personally experience dissociation? Feel free to talk about this within the context of a diagnosis if you have one. And how would/do you describe these experiences to others? Okay, here we go. So I experience dissociation in a lot of different ways. A lot of the time I experience it in a way that you might know the term of as depersonalized and derealized, or depersonalization and derealization. So if I was to describe that, you know, when you wake up from a dream and you think, did that actually happen? That's kind of how I feel about a lot of my life, kind of thing. So dreams and what's actually happening in my day-to-day life get very, very mixed up because they both have the same level of realness to them, if that makes sense. Like, everything is a little bit not quite right, or it's like hyper, like it's like technicolor kind of thing, like it's so bright, or it's kind of, or it's just fuzzy, or it feels a lot like I'm not really there, or I'm kind of watching from kind of somewhere back here. The way I sometimes describe it is, if you've seen The Truman Show, the film, it feels very much like that. So he's in this world and he thinks it's just the world, but it's actually a TV show and it's like a dome and he's just kind of stuck in it. And it feels a little bit like that. Like, it feels like someone's just going to come in one day and be like, psych, it wasn't real. Like, it feels a lot like I'm on like a movie set or something. Like, if you're thinking about a movie set or a TV program, you're like, oh, it's so weird that that's not actually real. That's how I feel. And sometimes I have that thought, I'm like, oh, that's so weird that this isn't actually real. And I'm like, no, wait, no, it is real, actually. That's kind of my general state, if you will. I also have alternative personality states. So yes, if you're wondering diagnosis-wise, that does mean DID, that's dissociative identity disorder, something that I've kind of struggled to come to terms with, the diagnosis, but it is there. They're different people, basically. One of the descriptions that actually one of my parts came up with is that my body is like a little plant pot, and like my personality, my being, is the plant, and so I have a pot and a plant, and they are just the plants. So they are whole people in the sense that they are a whole plant, if that makes sense. That maybe sounds a bit weird, but they have a personality, they have traits, they know what they like, they know what they dislike, like they have views about the world that they live in as much as I do. It's just that they don't have a pot to call their own, if that makes sense. So they kind of come out and use my pot. So I'm here now. I'm Amber, plant and pot, if that makes sense. And my kind of being would swap out. We use a switch, so it would swap out and Katie's plant would come in or whatever. And then, keeping with the plant analogy, there'd be times where my plant's out and there's no other plants there, so it's just a pot. And that is when I pass out. And I've recently discovered dissociative seizures are a thing, and I've got that. I had that a lot before. I would, like, when I've been told when I passed out, I would kind of twitch and stuff. And I mentioned it to my therapist, and she was like, yeah, I thought you knew that. I was like, no, I didn't know that. So we kind of worked out, well, that's what the passing out is, which is quite nice to put a name to that. Or if I'm frozen, sometimes I just freeze and stop. I think of that as like there's no plants kind of thing. It's just a pot. Yeah, so lots of different ways. I experience amnesia, which is very, very scary, and just losing time and just having like a warped sense of time, and all of that kind of thing. It's hard to pinpoint who I am because I don't really understand that. And then along with having all these other people in there as well, it's very, very hard to get who I am and get what my place is in this world, because myself nor the world feels very real. Okay, so the next question is, how have your experiences varied, altered, or changed throughout different stages of your life? So this is interesting. So I've drawn a little kind of graph. So I first discovered that I dissociated at Ballet West. So that was my kind of uni experience, and everything got very, very intense very quickly. And I started losing time and noticing that I was losing time. I started to find like bowls and plates and be like, I don't remember making food. And then about, I think in second year, that's when the parts started to kind of come forward noticeably. And I thought that was the first time I'd ever dissociated. I thought, where the hell has this come from? And now looking back, it was there the whole time. I was always described as a daydreamer. I was always forgetful. I would never remember like how I got places. So many times when I was younger, I would have a drink on my side and I'd kind of seem to turn around a second later and half of it was gone, and it would always just really confuse me. But now my experiences are less intense. At Ballet West, they got very, very intense. It was almost all of the time I was in some sort of dissociative state. Now it's kind of chilled out a little bit, and I think that's due to that I just know how to cope with it a little bit more than I did. So that's kind of the flow. It kind of looks a bit like this. And now I'm just here floating. That's in my head what it looks like. Okay, so question 3. Do you experience or have you ever experienced being self-aware during periods of dissociation? If so, do you feel it alters the level of control you have over your dissociation and yourself in the moment? I do have those times where I'm thinking, oh, I'm disassociating now, right, okay. And that does shift from what experience it is to another experience. So, for example, if I'm kind of switched, I will have no clue what's going on. I'm completely unself-aware. Completely unaware of what's going on. If I am kind of derealized and very kind of foggy and spaced out, sometimes I will have that, oh, I'm disassociating moment. And I can do things to regain myself kind of thing. So I do feel a little bit of that sense of agency over my body in that place. However, if I'm kind of frozen, if I'm stuck, or if I've kind of shut down, I'm aware, not all the time, I'm aware sometimes that it's going on and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm disassociating. But I have no capacity to know how to regain my capacity, if that makes sense. Kind of I can see myself in that moment just kind of sat there and I'm like, I know that I'm just sat here, but I literally, there is nothing I can do to stop it. And that's really scary. That is a real kind of loss of agency over my body. Sometimes I'll have like a sense of what happened. Sometimes this happens when I've kind of blanked out or when I can't remember something. Someone will tell me something. They'll kind of be telling something back to me and I'm like, that makes sense. I know that that's true. But I don't remember it kind of thing. So moving on, question 4. How does or has your experience with disassociation affected you in your life? How does it interact with other areas of your health and or illnesses, both mental and physical? Obviously, it's impacted my life in a lot of ways. I had to leave uni, had to leave my dance college course, partially because of that. Obviously, there was other things as well, but that was a big part of it. It affects my life just every day. It doesn't just affect what I do, but it affects how I do things. But that is sometimes a positive thing, realizing that I can still do things, but I just have to go about them in different ways. It definitely interacts with a lot of different areas of my life. I have anxiety and OCD, and it definitely interacts with that in a very strong way. If I'm anxious, I'm more likely to dissociate. If I'm panicking, I'm more likely to dissociate. It really like feeds in a lot. And if I'm physically unwell, it makes me more likely to dissociate again. Kind of trying to figure out who I am with things like my gender and my values and how I perceive myself and what my body is and what it looks like and all of that kind of stuff. And I feel like that is a two-way thing as well. It really affects a lot of areas of my life, and a lot of things affect it as well. I don't think there is something that it doesn't interact with. And not that the dissociation is affecting everything, but just that there is some sort of two-way thing going on in a lot of those areas. Moving on again. What are your experiences of dissociation within society? In your opinion, have you ever encountered any discrimination, mistreatment or misunderstanding surrounding your experiences/disorders? Sadly, yes. The second inpatients was not very good in terms of understanding what was going on. I had some very troubling experiences with some members of staff that were saying a lot of things to do with making things up and changes of names, and were very hurtful to some of the parts, which is scary because I only know about that because one of the parts told someone else and that person told me. And that scares me a little bit because I wonder how many other experiences there were like that. There was a lot of, I'd already been diagnosed in the first hospital with DID, then it got kind of undiagnosed and changed about a little bit, and that was said that was because it wasn't a real thing, and the way I experienced dissociation was just an atypical way of dissociation within EUPD. Yeah, it was very not good. But I have had positive experiences as well. In my first inpatients, they were really, really cool, and they really were really keen to do like journaling with the parts, and keen for them to be drawing stuff and writing stuff, and keen for me to be connecting with them and all of those kind of things. And my therapist now is very much like that. She's really, really cool and really just wants that connection and all of that kind of stuff. And that's the same with non-professionals within kind of my society kind of thing. Some members of family and friends and people I meet are really super, super cool, and some of them don't get it. Some of them want to understand, and some of them I feel as though they're a little bit scared to understand, because it can be scary, but it doesn't have to be, kind of thing. Yeah, I think that the main thing about the mistreatment and stuff is that it seems to be, this is my opinion of what I've experienced, it seems to be that it's not as kind of valued as a mental health difficulty as my other kind of illnesses are, which is quite hurtful because it's one of the biggest things. So yeah, there have been positive and negative experiences. With the negative experiences, I just try and keep accepting it within myself, and I feel like people will just have to accept it if I'm accepting it. Question 6. Do you receive any treatment or therapy targeted at managing your dissociative experiences/disorders? If so, how do you feel it helps you manage? As I mentioned just now, I have a really cool therapist. She's very, very cool. She helps me in a lot of ways. It helps I kind of processing events, noticing underlying themes. Like, we've kind of figured out that maybe one of the reasons that I don't process so many events is because I don't understand emotions and stuff. I don't understand it, and figuring out that I also get sensory overload, so that combined with the fact that I don't understand emotions makes it very hard to process events. Figuring things like that out really helps me understand what's happening now, and in turn I can kind of help that. And you just notice things like that, and also noticing triggers and noticing why those are triggers. I also attend Mind and Recovery College, and they're both really cool for kind of learning tools and learning how to help myself. So I do a lot of that. So the ways that it helps is very much active and also a little bit passive as well. Like, the active part is I do a lot of like that homework kind of stuff. There is a part of it that's passive as well, that's just talking about stuff that's happened, is just helping process all of just everything and just noticing things, and a lot of figuring out underlying things just naturally alleviates some of the anxiety, which alleviates some of the dissociation. It just like this kind of rolling effect, which is really, really cool. Question 7, trigger warning this question, because it does talk about trauma, so please be extra careful. So, some dissociative experiences and disorders can be linked to trauma. If this applies to you, how do you work with the trauma to better manage your dissociative symptoms? So, for me, because my therapist comes from a very trauma-based background, she's very, not keen, but she notices things and she goes, is that a thing maybe? And I'm still in a place where I'm not sure whether it relates to me. A lot of what we do is she will say, if we were working with a trauma model, we might say this. Or if we were going with the theory that this is how this has come about, we might want to explore that. And I'm like, okay, if, and it's kind of holding it over here. It's not holding it close here, that feels too much. It's holding it over here and saying, if that's if that's what happened, or if that's how I'm relating all of this stuff, linking all the stuff together, then we can do this kind of thing. What we do is I have a timeline, and anything that I think might be a thing is what we kind of say, it might be a thing. Then we cross it, we pin it kind of thing, and we might revisit that later. I personally don't really use the word trauma. I will say like a difficulty, or I will say a sticky event or a fuzzy event. A lot noticing also that if there's something that I have no emotion towards, is perhaps a thing, a sticky event. Working in that way is identifying those triggers and being able to say to myself, this is making me anxious now, possibly because of this thing in the past. And a lot of the time I'm not pinpointing anything, I'm just saying that might be the reason. And working with a kind of might, it may be thing is really helpful to me.
Hello again, same video, but I've changed. I didn't just change. My camera battery ran out, and as I was kind of paused for a second, I realised, kind of checked in with myself and realised that I actually was feeling a little bit spaced out, not feeling too great. So I took a break. I went to the gym because that chills me out, and I had a shower, and now I'm just in my kind of cozy clothes because that's what I felt like I needed. So going just straight back into it. With question 8, which is quite fitting actually. So question 8 is, how do you cope day to day, i.e. the use of grounding techniques, tools, strategies, etc.? So I ground a lot. It's one of my kind of main things that I do. So grounding is basically just connecting to your senses and connecting to yourself within the world around you. So I've got my kind of grounding stone, one of them. I have loads. I have a little grounding bag. So in my grounding bag, it has just lots of different things, just lots of different kind of stones. There's some Play-Doh in there. There's some different essential oils. There's also a little card that's kind of like a breathing card if I'm anxious as well, to kind of connect myself to my breath. So yeah, I do that. I have a little mantra that I say to myself that's about me being real and valid in the world around me, being real, and that I'm safe, and like I have just a little like 4-line mantra, which is quite cool. I also I do a lot of decompressing and kind of consciously processing the day, because I find it very hard to process the day. So I decompress and I just kind of shut off all my senses. I have my headphones on, I wrap myself in a little blanket and turn the lights down, and that just really is kind of a controlled shutdown of my senses a little bit. And in that same kind of realm, I try to practice meditation regularly. Sometimes meditation is my kind of way to be shutting down for a second and pausing my mind kind of thing. And that's what I do with going to the gym as well, and just really focus all of my energy on that exercise. And also, if the dissociation is coming from an anxiety place, then I find exercise really helpful because it just gets rid of that extra energy for me. So they're kind of in the moment things. And then also there's things like connecting to my values, doing a values card sort. That was one of the most helpful things for me personally. And when I'm kind of spaced out, revisiting those values and asking people, if they're trying to engage me in conversation, ask me about something that is connected to my values, something that I'm passionate about, because that will really make me feel connected to me, really connected to my person kind of thing. Clothing is a big thing for me. Sometimes if I'm feeling a bit out of it, I need to put something on that feels like me. Also planning ahead. I do a weekly planner, and I find that I'm a lot less stressed out and less likely to be dissociating if I know what the week has ahead of me. And also kind of risk planning if there isn't a big event coming up. For me, just planning the risks and planning each day and literally writing down everything I have to do. My crisis plan The first time that it got used, the experience was so much more beneficial. I was able to come out of my dissociative state a lot quicker and a lot smoother. The people that were with me, even though they'd only known me for a day, they were able to know exactly what to do, and they were able to avoid things that aren't helpful. So, question 9. Are you involved with any positive communities, networks that are particularly supportive of dissociative disorders and experiences? If so, how are they helpful to you? And if appropriate, feel free to share names of these communities. Okay. So a big online one for me is the PODS website. It has a forum, which was really, really helpful, and it has lots of articles and stuff, which aren't part of the community, but they're really helpful. And the kind of community on there was quite nice, really supportive. So that's dedicated to dissociation. Another thing a little bit different is when I went, just a really lovely experience, when I went to Pavilion Dance Southwest to do my Young Choreographers Southwest weekend, and then when I went there to do the kind of residency for creating 70%. So they have nothing to do with anything mental health wise, but the community there and the people there were so supportive and so ready to listen and learn. They were ready to listen to how they could help in any way. And I felt so comfortable that I could just create freely, because I was obviously creating the dance piece, and to be able to be in that space and to be creating such a vulnerable piece as well, because the piece was a narrative of a dissociative experience, and to feel safe doing something so vulnerable was really amazing. And that freedom and supportive community was really, really nice, and I just kind of wanted to share that. Obviously, the YouTube community as well is such a supportive place to be, and I'm ready to kind of get more involved in that community as well. I'd like to anyway. Another place for me is a recovery college. So they offer kind of facilitated courses on different types of recovery. Again, nothing to do with disassociation in particular. It's very broad. It's very kind of to help you with your mental health recovery. The last question: is there anything else you would like to add about dissociative experiences and/or disorders, either in relation to you personally or within the wider society?
I think a note on stigma. I personally think the best way that we can, as a community, combat that is just by education and just by talking and just working on our own self-acceptance. And I think in turn that will reflect onto the wider society, and that is just my opinion. For me, I'm working on accepting these experiences for myself, and I think that I don't know, I just feel like that's going to just reflect outwards. If I'm accepting of myself and if I'm talking very naturally about my experiences, I hope that that will just reflect outwards. It's fine if you don't fully accept it yet, and if you're feeling as well like you want to participate, be like, I'm not really fully accepting of my experiences. That's fine. That can be a journey for you. For me, doing this has helped me on my kind of acceptance journey, if you will, so much, because just talking about the experiences and just talking about the tag is just helping me reinforce in my head that it's just okay. Yeah, I'm hoping there'll be one day where I'm super completely accepting, but it's okay to be in the middle place. It's not, you don't have to be all there. You don't have to be all there to be talking about it. You don't have to wait. The thing that I found was I have to wait to start talking about this on my channel until I fully accepted it. And then I was like, well, that's silly, because this is the space you're at now. If you want to talk about it now, talk about it now. It doesn't matter that you haven't fully accepted it. That can be part of the journey. So that's just everything. If you do want to do the disassociation tag with these questions, please feel free. I've got a video on how to participate in unpacking the questions, because they are quite big. So you can watch that if you like, or if you want to know a bit more, there's another video explaining what the tag is and how it came about. And there's the website, www.thedissociationtag.co.uk. And hopefully you can spell disassociation, because I still can't. My social medias
are choreograph.the.reform, and they will have updates and all the information on. And if you do know anyone that is that suffers from dissociation or might find this kind of hopefully community, hopefully maybe one day, point them in the direction of it. I'm not asking them, you don't have to watch my video. Hopefully there'll be others so they can watch them and find someone they relate to. So that's cool. Do that if you like to. Very last thing is just to say thank you again to everyone who helped me like proofread and helped me when I got stressed, because I was like, I've taken on such a huge thing, why did I do this? So thank you. I feel like I'm accepting an award. I'm not. I just wanted to say thank you. If people are watching this and you've helped, thank you. And obviously again, thank you to Ashley Wild. Massive credit to her. Inspiration credit, if you will. And yeah, just thank you to her for all of that advice and just kind of letting me use the gender tag as a light model to do this on. Yeah, and thank you to obviously Abby for doing my website. It's really cool. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I really hope that it goes somewhere, but it's getting out of my book now and off of my laptop, and it's like out in the world. Sorry about the lighting. It's probably really dark now. Oh well, such is life. Things aren't perfect. I needed a rest. I was going to take a rest. So keep yourself safe, especially if you're watching videos or talking about dissociation. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself grounded. I look forward to hopefully seeing some of your tags and seeing where this goes. Okay, goodbye.